Hello and welcome to the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians, the number 81 show on all of iTunes in the business category. It's meant to educate and maybe entertain a little bit, bringing you stories of regular, everyday Canadian investors who have repeatable results, so you and I may learn their best practices, what works and what doesn't. No get-rich-quick schemes. We're actually going to have some guests on who have some failed get-rich-quick schemes. Specifically Clydesdale Capital. I personally can't stand gambling. I do not like anything that loses me money. But you can talk to my stock and crypto account. Investing is a marathon. The odds of success improve over time, in my experience, especially when you base it in economic fundamentals and continuous improvement, resulting in the creation of long-term wealth. This show is hosted and produced by me, a full-time real estate professional, OG investor, specialist realtor since 2010. My team and I have helped close to 500 clients invest in over $400 million worth of cash flowing real estate, helping clients achieve financial peace. For example, we have at least 45 self-made millionaire clients, and that excludes their principal residence. I believe investing should be intentional. If you just bought a home and it went up, that wasn't intentional. Partly intentional, but we exclude it for our stats just to be conservative because I like being conservative. This past week has been a busy one. My brother got married. We hosted a conference for about 800 investors. And most importantly, report cards. The school report cards. That's right. Let's see what the educational professionals have to say about my kids. Oh boy, hang on. All right. If you want to skip this rant, just keep skipping forward. I'll have a great episode. But until then, I'm obviously biased and have invested heavily into my kids. Myself and especially Cherry has invested heavily into our kids. With the most recent strike in the school system, like all parents, we scrambled to keep our kids learning ongoing because our kids' education is important to us. I know it's not important to everyone else. Cherry actually ordered some math workbooks from Amazon, and we soon realized my son is 2 years ahead based on his knowledge of multiplication. And both my kids love to read. We don't allow much screen time in the house, maybe once a week. So when the kids aren't at their extracurriculars or doing any homework, they're reading books or they're working in the family business. So what do the educational professionals have to say about my kids? By the way, my kids do public speaking as well. So as a test, my daughter volunteered. My eldest, Robin, she's 8 years old. She gave a 1-minute presentation at the conference in front of those 800 people on the subject of money, saving, and investing. I personally, at her age, I would have rather gone for a polar bear dip in the freezing lake waters than public speak in front of adults at the age of 8, nonetheless. Anyways, these educational professionals said my kids had a great start, quote unquote great start, and an excellent start, then ticked good in every category. Not one excellent, not one satisfactory. Straight B's for both kids. Either the teachers have no idea who my kids are, or I don't have any idea who my kids are, or this is some sort of protest. I have no idea. I am honestly thinking about selling one of my houses in order to afford private school. My kids are in public school. It's a 4-minute walk. It's so close. And it's so much less money than private school. Rant over. I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who played a part in our Wealth Hacker Conference. Our sponsors, thank you so much. Appreciate all the feedback. I'm glad you're also happy with the results. My team here at Erwin Real Estate did a bang-up job manning our booth, talking to people about real estate investing, specifically strategies that work, unlike all those poor folks who are out there who paid for expensive coaching and are losing money and are approaching bankruptcy. I feel really bad for you guys. Thank you to Cherry's Real Estate Tax Tips team. Thank you to my wife, of course. She busted her butt to make this event happen. Thank you to Andy and the AV team. Our speakers, Jason Lowe, Dahlia of Streetwise Mortgages, Jordan Anderson, our MC Joe, and of course Derek Foster. He absolutely killed. I can't believe how many books he sold at the event. He was only accepting cash. I was thinking, wow, a lot of people don't carry cash these days. I guess a lot of people carry cash to our event because Derek sold out of books and he had a lot of books. Is putting on a conference hard? Hell yes. And the results were pretty amazing. It was so great to see so many from our community who I hadn't seen in 3 years thanks to that pandemic. My talks provided me an outlet to share my research and how I'll be investing going forward. That was great to get that off my chest. Cherry's talk, I personally loved it. The last few years, many got rich and many lost sight of cash flow. Maybe I'm just projecting. Our portfolio has done quite well, and yes, we kind of lost sight of cash flow. At least I did, with all the equity gains. House rich, cash poor. That explains me pretty well. We're not that bad off. I'm just over exaggerating on the cash poor. I personally can't wait to get our financial roadmaps planned out to know when we can stop working if we ever wanted to. Thankfully, it's not far away thanks to our boring but profitable real estate portfolio I've been working on since 2005. Thank you to Jesse Itzler, our keynote speaker, who brought a DJ with him all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, and didn't charge us any extra. Thank you, Jesse. I only found out the week of Jesse was bringing a DJ. I had no idea he was going to bring a DJ. I heard his talk included a DJ. I thought that we'd have to provide the DJ. Anyways, Jesse's talk killed it. I know many had tears in their eyes. One friend of mine had to leave the room, actually. Jesse's story, hiring an ex-Navy SEAL to coach him through the last man standing race, was absolutely insane, inhuman. The words, "I feel outstanding" and "we don't get tired" from now on mean something to me and something else entirely. Even tough guys like Neil Oliver, Rachel Oliver's husband, told me that Jesse killed it. So again, I know for me, I'll take Jesse's lessons away of pouring one's soul into the work to heart. You, my 17 listeners, you will see what we have in store for 2023. We're doubling up on the amount of educational content that we put out there. The podcast will largely be unchanged. We will have a few more solo podcast episodes with just myself, sharing my research, and a few shorter episodes with my coaches from the coaches on my team to share what we're seeing on the streets. Because the recession's here, and recessions are best for getting rich, and we're in one. I predict the average market will have bottomed by spring, maybe summer. However, the best deals will be gone by then, so stay tuned if you're interested in the deals our clients are snapping up, and if you want to know what a deal looks like. If you're new to the subject of real estate investing and want to learn more, I have a free book for you called The Canadian Real Estate Investing Playbook, which contains stories and strategies of how my team and I have helped close to 500 hardworking Canadians build a cash flowing portfolio of real estate as a side hustle. It's my opinion that real estate is best as a side hustle. We have a good number of clients and track record to back that up. If you're interested in the book, simply go to our website, www.truthaboutrrealestateinvesting.ca. Again, that's www.truthaboutrrealestateinvesting.ca. There's a link on the right side. It's a big picture of a book. Click on it. Go download a copy for free. If you're near my office, feel free to come by and grab a physical copy. We're here typically during business hours. On to this week's show. We have Jesse from possibly the most popular private mortgage provider in Calvert Mortgages. Unlike the banks, Calvert loves rough and ugly properties. That's actually their niche. Investors love Calvert Mortgages because their turnaround is fast. In my opinion, it's the fastest I've seen for short-term money that's private, but fast money does come with a price. Today we have Jesse Bobrowski. Sorry if I've watched too many Simpsons episodes. We have Jesse, Vice President of Business Development, and he's here to share how Calvert helps flippers and BRRRR investors, how much money down you need, rates, lender fees, terms, how they lend, all those sorts of detail. He can explain it much better than I do since it's his business. No, their focus is not here to raise capital to lend out, which is extremely risky in this market. As I mentioned, there's lots of investors who are near bankruptcy looking to raise private funds. Do be careful out there. I have a couple clients who have shared that private people who borrow private money from them are not returning their calls. We had nothing to do with that. I've been pretty. It's my bias that I personally don't private lend, so don't ask me how to private lend. I personally don't. It doesn't fit my risk reward criteria. But that's one. Calvert's not here to raise funds for lending out. They're here to let folks know how to borrow from them. And also Calvert, Jesse specifically is actually based in Calgary, so they know Alberta well. They only operate in Alberta and Ontario. Sorry, BC. Maybe you guys should hit them up so you guys can get served as well. Anyways, Calvert is the largest private lender that I know of personally, with 330 million out there in loans. That's a lot of money. That's bigger than any private lender I know. And also, I'm hearing some private lenders are no longer lending. So for more information, check them out. www.chmic.ca. Again, that's www.chmic.ca. I have links in the show notes. I know several mortgage brokers who refer business to Calvert, and past guests of this show who swear by Calvert as well. Please enjoy the show. Hi, Jesse. What's keeping you busy these days?
Hey, Erwin, thanks for having me. Lots keeping me busy. I have a young family. I have a busy and growing business that I'm a partner in, and we have some exciting markets that we're lending into. So a lot's keeping me busy. Thanks for asking.
How young is the family?
My son is 6 years old, grade one. Daughter is 4 years old.
Oh, young.
Yeah, my wife and I both work, so that's exciting. We both have relatively demanding jobs. Yeah,
I can imagine you're pretty busy.
yeah, we keep busy, man. We keep busy.
How is it compared to now? How's like now busy? Like, so this is October 20th, we're recording. How busy are you now compared to like at the peak of the market?
So I guess busy is subjective. We always are trying to, in terms of professionally, work on the business, set foundations, and grow it. So, February, January of this year, particularly with what was happening in the Ontario market, we were extremely busy
Mhm.
with loan requests, supporting our borrowers who buy, renovate, and sell flippers, or who buy, renovate, rent,
Mhm.
and refinance properties. So a ton of deal flow was happening in Ontario then. Since then, deal flow has slowed down in Ontario. Deal flow has remained very consistent. It's actually growing in Alberta, where we predominantly lend into the Calgary and Edmonton markets. But today, what we have seen over the last 2 years is significant growth in the business. We've seen a real ability to help support Canadians who are buying and renovating single family houses.
Mhm.
We don't see that overarching trend slow long term. In Canada, there's a huge demand for single family houses in major urban centers. There is a significant lack of supply. And as we welcome new Canadians who predominantly we welcome new Canadians who are ready to work and who have capital and who demand single family houses, we look forward to continuing to help our clients rejuvenate that stock and get it so it's marketable to your average home buyer.
Yeah, I've actually been trying to dig up how many visas. So we all know the immigration number, or like new permanent residents we're getting. I was
Yes,
actually trying to find how many visas Canada gives out. So work visas, student visas, because the thing is, they all need to live here too. If you're
totally,
here, you need a place to live.
totally.
I think
That
that
is a really good That's a really interesting question, and something that we should be digging up, because we're just, the
well,
number
I'm
of new
digging.
immigrants,
I'm
that
digging Google.
400,000 number is there for
Yeah, it's
us.
there.
We know on average 58% of them are economic immigrants, so bringing in skills and capital.
Mhm. Sorry, you
But
said 58%?
on average, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
on average over the last, I'm using 10-year Stats Can data, is 58%.
Right. And then the rest are hard cases.
Yeah, the rest are more humanitarian
Right.
cases where
Yeah.
they're fleeing countries that are you don't want to live in.
Right. And then the reality of that is, as kind as it is, that's inflationary.
Totally,
Right? Because
totally.
they'll require support, they'll require government support, they'll require free healthcare, right?
Hmm.
Right. So yeah, so that's just another more inflation plus the number I saw this morning. Don't quote me, folks. Like I think it was over 500,000 visas that Canada gives out on top of the new permanent residents.
Oh wow.
right? Well,
Wow.
like student visas, for example. There's, all the international
Yeah.
students have to have a student visa. There's,
Yeah.
right, and economically, they're generally pretty well off.
Yeah. Yeah. They're well off. They definitely are contributors to the economy. So welcome them in with open arms.
In you're mentioning that like you guys are part of the housing market, and you're betting pretty much the farm that the real estate continues to do well in Canada. Am I wrong? Well, at least between in Alberta and Ontario.
Wrong. Well is again subjective.
Uh-huh.
Our thesis is that again, Canadians need somewhere to live.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of if the market's appreciating or depreciating,
Mm-hmm.
what we've seen from 30 plus years of supporting real estate investors on short-term mortgages is that there is an opportunity to buy housing stock that the general market doesn't want. So stuff that's been dilapidated, lots of deferred maintenance, renovate it and sell it for a profit. So in Alberta, where essentially we go through 5 to 8 year cycles of peak and trough, we've seen flippers be successful in any market. What happens is the sharper flippers during downtimes buy better, get to market quick, and still sell. At where we focus, Erwin, is the mid to lower half of the market, where typically there is a floor because again, people need housing, and at a certain price point, it becomes affordable to a lot of the population. So that's our thesis: is just supporting the Canadian housing stock on the mid to lower half, where we're redeveloping existing stock in major urban centers, which is where the economy is and will likely continue to be.
Now, Jesse, you and I got introduced because I had several friends of mine who are very serious, very professional real estate investors, and they're still successful in this market. They're that good. Why do you guys have so many fans?
Well, what we try to do is understand what their pain points are. Like, what do you need as an investor, as a business person, and what's not being offered? We also do a lot to educate and make the process as effortless as possible. So the effortless process, we have tools like our flip analyzer. We have a lot of case studies. We do a lot of education as it relates to tips for flips, economic updates, that kind of stuff. But going back to serving that pain point, for our clients, the banks, so the financial institutions who lend out 90 some odd percent of mortgage capital are not interested in helping people for short term. They're also not interested in lending on housing stock that is outside of their parameters. So if it's not inhabitable, usually when a banker looks at the appraisal, it's just a no-go. So we're filling a void in the market, a gap in the market where we're an intermediary interim lender supporting them. There are a lot of other, we refer to them more as private lenders out there who are doing this type of lending. But they lack in most instances, our clients love us for the consistency and the speed of our decision making. Like literally, Erwin, our underwriters can turn a file around same day. We have a really unique value add to our clients where we employ appraisers. So we do our own valuations in-house, and we can analyze the property, analyze the budget, and through that and through a lot of data and history, determine what the after repaired value is same day, and give the commitment that quickly, and in turn enable the investor some leverage in the negotiation. They can go into a negotiation knowing that they have our financing, knowing that we can lend it out tomorrow and solve the seller's needs. And usually the seller's needs is to sell and to sell quick. So they can get a better deal through our service. So it's really what we've done is we've evolved the business to solve as many pain points as possible. And our goal is to continue to increase that effortless experience to to leverage data, to leverage our people in
Mhm.
order to provide better service, more timely, at a better cost to them.
For the listeners' benefit, to give an example, how much scale you guys have, can you say how much you've deployed in Canada in terms of funds? Or
Yeah,
how do you guys
yeah.
measure this?
So this year, our financial year begins March 1st and ends February 28th. We will lend out around $450 million.
That's a lot of
And
money.
yeah, and 75% of that will be to real estate investors. Um, and we think that we are just um, cracking the surface on what we can serve Ontario. So, for instance, that let's call it 350 mil that we're lending out. Actually, I'll do some quick math. So we'll lend out about 340 million to flippers. By the way, on average, our flip loans are 400 grand. So 335 mil divided by the 400. So we'll serve over 800 real estate investor transactions this year.
Right.
Right now, we're lending out around just as much money in Alberta than we are in Ontario.
Oh, no
But
way. Okay.
yeah, but through and that's because the business is founded. We're based out of Alberta. We only started serving Ontarians 2.5 years ago. So when you look at the total available market, we should be serving 4 times as many Albertans, 4 times as many Ontarians than Albertans. So we know that there's a lot more people that we can help, a lot more real estate investors that need to hear about us, and hopefully that we can serve. So there's a lot more scale of the
Right.
business in Ontario, and then we know that there's some really solid real estate investors in other provinces.
Right.
Particularly, we're interested in serving British Columbia,
Hmm.
just because it's next door. It is a relatively large market, and the rules and regulations to participate there are similar to Alberta. So whereas in Quebec, for example, the barriers to entry as it relates to regulation and even how they do business there doesn't make it as an exciting opportunity than the prospect of going to BC and deploying our capital there.
Would we have to have this whole conversation in French if this was in Quebec?
Exactly.
Oh,
I don't know.
great.
I'd have to review the regulations, but I'm
ARV
sure.
in French. You know, Jesse, selfishly, I should just bury this episode so there's less competition for me when I'm out there buying.
Yeah. Well, we know that you buy well. You're sophisticated, and I think if you're out there searching the market, there's more than enough opportunities.
I don't know, man. So I'll give you an example. So you tell me, because I think this is a prototypical deal someone would bring to you. For
Yeah.
example, I'm seeing more listings now that are renovation projects. The seller has started renovating, so they've gutted the house, not necessarily to the stud, but they've taken out the kitchen, they've taken out the bathroom, they've taken out the flooring, right? And these are the pictures on Realtor.ca.
Right.
Right? And I'm like, to me, automatically, no bank's touching that, right?
Totally.
I needed to come cash, or I go private,
Yep.
or I go to someone like yourself, right?
Yep.
I go to Calvert. And then I couldn't believe it. So we knew that they paid like $800 for the house. The asking was $499. They just wanted action, right?
Right.
And I think it's something like can end up having like 7 offers selling for $750. I'm like, holy cow! That many people can get that deal done.
Wow.
And that makes me think
Wow.
that too many people know about Calvert, which is why we need to bury this episode.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big thing there is on the open market. It is more difficult to buy right than on the private market.
Right.
So,
oh, just give us some time. There's more of these are coming.
yeah. So a lot of going back to a lot of these flippers and BRRRR clients, they're out there, they're scouring the private market, and they're solving the problem of a lot of people that don't want to list on the market because they've had mental health issues with hoarding, with they don't want people in their house.
Mm-hmm.
And even if that's 0.5% of
Mm-hmm.
available properties to sell, that's still a huge number. So that's kind of where we see our clients mostly
Mm-hmm.
working is
Mm-hmm.
in the private sales with wholesalers. Buy your house for cash,
Mm-hmm.
optimizing Google searches
Mm-hmm.
for when people are Googling how to sell your house off market, they're the first that come up. So those
Very
are
right.
those are the tricks that we see a
Mm-hmm.
lot of our flippers deploying.
Very right. For this market, though, we're actually starting to see some power sales by the banks.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of opportunity for anyone who's looking these days. Anyone who's either cash rich or has financing available to them, especially
Yeah.
for these projects that the bank won't touch. So actually, that leads us to a good question. Like, what for the listeners' benefit, what is like the range of properties you typically service? So you mentioned hoarder house,
Yeah,
which is
so
not
the
for
range of
everybody.
properties we love single family.
Hmm.
We love 4 units and less, residential. Uh, homo homo a homogeneous property is what we like the most, right? Like,
What does that
don't
mean?
go don't go buying don't go buying something really unique and trying to get
Ah,
it to
okay, okay,
market,
yeah.
because you're gonna lack data. Like, a lot of times, especially the newer flippers, they come to us with like, you got
Like
a
horse
neighborhood
farm.
where everything is, or even like a neighborhood where everything is 2,200 square foot, 2 stories, and they thought somehow there's a 900 square foot bungalow, and they try to analyze it and adjust for it and justify why it's a good deal, but there's no data to support. And when
Right,
they're
right.
doing that, they're putting themselves at risk because there's
Mhm.
just a lack of sales information, and in turn, you've really shrunk your buying market, or horse farms, or rural.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I say urban,
Mhm.
single family, because there is a big market. There is really good data, and
Right,
good
right.
data is timely and
Mhm.
abundant.
Mhm.
And in urban centers, you have timely and abundant data. Whereas the further out of an urban center you go, the harder it is going to be to pin down value.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's the spectrum. And now, another thing that we're really paying attention to is, again, um, the lack of housing. And CMHC has identified that, and they've created a program for multifamily investors. Um, and we see opportunity for that. So we're starting to look into, okay, how do we help these investors early stages? How do we help them come in, renovate, increase rents? And
Mhm.
then we've seen instances where we're serving clients, and they've increased rents, they've stabilized the cash flow, and now they go to the CMHC insured product,
Mhm.
and they're exiting with cash in their jeans from us, with a really great cash flowing property. So
Mhm.
we're paying a lot of attention to that. We've seen ourselves do a few $1 million of deals of that in Edmonton to one borrower. So we figure, if that's happening to one borrower in Edmonton, what else is happening in Edmonton? What's happening in Calgary? What's happening in Southern Ontario?
Mhm.
So we want to get ahead of that trend and figure out how we can best support real estate investors on rehabilitating those multifamily properties.
Amazing. Yeah, and then more of it housing stock is available, which is the best thing anyone can do for this housing crisis we're in the middle of. Uh,
Exactly.
so Jesse, I want to go back to your previous point about major centers. Can you name off some like the smaller towns that you guys will lend to? Like for
Well,
example, like with the pandemic, people really spread out,
they
right?
did.
People left urban centers. You know, tons of people moved to like London, to Belleville, to the suburbs, and even smaller centers of like 50,000. Like, is the center of 50,000 too small for you, for example?
No, it's not. As long as, when we analyze the economic fundamentals,
Hmm.
so employment, migration, we look at stuff like what is the current housing inventory. We look at it on kind of a how many months of housing inventory there is. Um, Look at a lot of trends, and if we determine that the economy and the housing market is stable enough, we'll lend there. So, rule of thumb, we want to land in urban centers with 50,000 people or more.
You
Um,
call 50,000 urban?
Yeah, we do. We do. And again, Erwin, going back to, does it have the economic and housing fundamentals that gives us the confidence that we're not going to deal with big problems down the road? So
Right.
50,000 people or more, or within a 10-kilometer radius of that. If it's 100,000 people or more, we'll go within a 25 kilometer radius.
Got it. Because my university I went to was 28,000 people, so we almost qualified.
No, you as long as it's in the city, we'll go 10,000 to 49,000 as long as it's in the city. And again, going back to our analysis and giving us confidence that the economy and housing market is stable enough where we want to be deploying capital long term.
Jesse, I forgot to ask probably the burning question that everyone has in their minds. How much does it cost them? And how long do they have to repay? And how much do they have to put down?
Awesome.
Those are probably the first three questions you get from every investor.
Yeah, we're just working with kind of our marketing and communications firm and figuring out exactly what is the messaging. So we talked about the pain points. Another really unique offering that we have is low money down. So our borrowers can borrow from us with as little as, in Ontario, $20,000 down. That is provided that they have the capital to execute the plan. So the capital to renovate and to carry our debt for the planned period of time. But most importantly, provided that when we do our analysis, that we see they're going to make real money. So we'll lend with as little as $20,000 down, which is something that really appeals, especially to the pros, because they're interested in doing volume. And one of their biggest one of the biggest things that they lack is, in order to do volume, you usually need a big pile of capital, where we'll allow them to do it with as little as $20,000 down. So our pricing,
and this is for professionals.
Yeah.
Like the
we're
best
not
of
going
the
to get
best.
the best of the best. This is
Not
for
someone
the
with
people,
like a year experience.
No. We're dealing with people that, and now we will deal with people with a year or even getting new into it and guide them through the process, but we're going to need more security.
Yeah.
We're going to work with them a lot differently than the best of the best. So,
and you're probably not gonna lend to them on 5 properties off the hop.
no. In order to get to volume, you have to prove yourself to
Right.
us, and either that's through working with us directly, showing us the portfolio, looking at your financials. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into building trust with each other. So $20,000 down. Now, before, when money was really inexpensive, we would lend to as low as 7.99%. That would be our terms for our borrowers. For our flip borrowers, are always 6 months fully open, interest-only payments. Typically, our borrowers are exiting from us before that 6 months. Of course, sometimes the projects are larger scale. Sometimes the market slows down, and we need to renew. We renew at no cost, but we do pay attention to, hey, why are you renewing? What happened? What deviated in the plan where you're now going longer than 6 months? Or sometimes we just, a longer project, they anticipate 9 months, and we just follow the progress. So 7.99, and our rate is dependent on down payment. So we view it, the more you put down, the lower our risk. So you were able to access that rate with 25% or more down. And then it's a sliding scale. As you put less down, the pricing becomes more. The pricing for today, the pricing for the 20K down product is 15.99. So 16% annualized interest-only payments. On average, our borrowers are with us for 5 months. So really, effectively, they're paying us 7.5% interest. And we always charge a fee. In Ontario, the fee is 2%. That fee doesn't get paid until they exit. So let's say in the instance where they're only putting 20 grand down, they buy a house for 520. We lend them 500. The 2% fee, which is 10 grand, it just gets added to the mortgage. So our mortgage is actually 510 grand. They do what they need to do, get on market, sell it. We get paid back to 510. That 2% is whether you come to us through a broker, a mortgage broker or not. We love working with mortgage brokers. They like our product. So we don't penalize our borrowers by coming through us through a broker. If they come to us direct, it's 2%. And if they come through a broker, it's 2%.
Right.
So basically, today we've had to increase our rates with what's, the Bank of Canada has increased rates so far 3%. It's looking like next week we'll see another 0.75, maybe 0.5. So that'll be 3.75. We'll increase our prices by half of what the Bank of Canada has done. So we will increase by, depending on what they do next week, we'll increase by another 50 basis points or 0.75.
It's kind of you.
Yeah. So right now we've only increased on our whole book 1% versus the 3% that the Bank of Canada has done.
Seriously.
The next increase will catch up with that a bit. Like we're running our modeling and looking out for the next few years, and we need to increase our cost of capital a bit because of the inflationary period, and also we borrow a decent percent of our money from the bank. So that cost of capital for us is tied to the bank rate.
So your spread is actually getting squeezed by not raising your rate.
Our spread is getting squeezed. Luckily, we've built a really strong business where the margins are okay. So we don't have to, we always ask ourselves, how much money do we need to make? Do our shareholders need to make versus risk? We want to make a really good risk adjusted return, and for ourselves and our shareholders. But the more we increase pricing to our borrowers, that also has a risk component, right? It's easy to say, yeah, let's just raise it 3%. Well, now we've squeezed their margins. So it's a balancing act, and we didn't need to increase it lockstep. So we're trying to do our best with balancing, with providing the best pricing possible to our shareholders. It's still serving the business. Sorry, the best possible pricing to our borrowers. Mm-hmm. It's still serving the business and our shareholders with the best possible risk-adjusted return that we can provide.
Mm-hmm. And then, do you help folks with their exit? Like, for example, people who are going to whose plan is to refinance.
We do. We help them by firstly day one. We have them walk us through their exit.
Yeah.
And our underwriters are very skilled at that and poking holes. Like when they see, whoa, you're not going to exit, then we won't do the deal. Or if they see, okay, you're going to exit, you've been using, let's say, for instance, a big financial institution, you have 4 properties, you're about to go for your 5th. Oh, you might see problems there. You might want to go talk to a professional, like go talk to a mortgage broker who deals with real estate investors. And then we'll use them as the expert opinion to say, yeah, I got Joe approved. Don't worry about it. Here's how we're going to do it. So we help them by having them walk us through, poking holes, and ensuring that there's a high likelihood of exit. And that's especially important for our BRRRR clients. For our flip clients, it's just going to market, but it's also going to market at the right price. Like, 7 months ago, go to market at whatever price, it'll sell.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, today, and it's surprising, Erwin, like your market in Ontario has been so good for so long that the professionals don't have the tools they need in this market. Like getting sharp on listing and really looking at comparables and coming in a little bit lower than the best comparables to get a good offer and a fast sale. We've seen that in dealing with a down markets forever. So we can give them that education. We can make sure that their expectation, because the worst thing that can happen in this market is they expect to sell for 10% more than what we think reality is, and they chase the market down and continue to chase it down and fight it the whole way. That's a losing proposition. Yeah, you've got to get ahead of it. You have to.
You have to be the best deal, or else no one's going to take you.
Exactly. Houses are still selling, but you have to be the best deal.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah. And then it's actually, I know from speaking to you offline that you guys only lend on a certain. What's the most expensive property that you lend on, for example?
We try to stay away from lending over $2 million on one property.
That's a pretty big that's a pretty big watermark.
Yeah, yeah. Although that includes the multifamily, right? Like
Okay.
going back to, we try to stay to the mid to lower half of any market, right? So in Toronto, single family house, we're going to see $1 million+ properties. Although at the moment on our whole book, we have $330 million out in mortgages today. We have five loans over $1 million, and the highest being 1.7. So we really stick to lending to the mid to lower half. Although, if we have a really strong borrower who has an expertise in flipping higher end stuff, we're going to want to look to support them. We're going to want to look to know their business and understand it. So we never want to set our parameters so rigid that we're not supporting the good practitioners, the good operators, the good projects.
And then, so for example, you're talking about high end. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's a bit more, seems to be not a big part of your book. But say it is a high end flip, how do you gauge risk on like their exit price, for example?
Well, we're always doing our after repair value, right? We're always analyzing what the comparables are. We're looking at what has sold recently, and the fewer comparables, the more hesitant we get. So on the high end property, if they're coming in and saying, yeah, this is going to be worth 3 million when it's complete, we say, great, we'll gather the data and we say, yeah, it's there. Or we say, we're not seeing it. Nothing's sold in that neighborhood. Days on market are huge. There's not good data to support what you're talking about. And we'll say no if that's the case. But
Right.
if it's like, for instance, I'm a lot more versed in Calgary. If you're in a really good neighborhood in Calgary, and right now houses are selling for that, we have some really good income earners, and that trajectory as our economy grows should continue for some time. So a $2 million property doesn't scare us as much as it did 6 years ago during the energy downturn, when we had massive vacancies downtown, when we had head offices leaving, when we had a brain and money drain. We're not seeing that today. We're seeing really good indicators that says that the energy sector in Canada is needed to supply the world with energy. We're seeing a lot of good activity as it relates to tech work, and we're seeing other industries move in. So we have a better feel long term for where Calgary will be. So on a $2 million house today, we have an appetite for it, and there's comparables. There's houses selling. There's data to say, yeah, there's a market for these houses.
All right, we're gonna get to Alberta. I just want to wrap up the Ontario story. So, what are you seeing now for people who've already borrowed, for example? Like, are people doing all right? They're managing.
For the it's they're due. If you would have told me in February the market's going to drop in most instances 20% in 6 months, we would have stopped lending, and we would have prepared for some big delinquencies and big losses. We are 8 months into this. We're seeing our borrowers be remarkably resilient. Yes, there's more tough calls where they're saying, Calvert, we're stuck. We can't sell. They need advice. They need talking to. And in most instances, it is to sell, to rip the Band-Aid off, to get in at a price where the market wants it and move on to the next project. So in Ontario, our borrowers, like typically flippers, should be hitting singles, maybe the odd double, right? So when when we're talking average price point, let's say 500 grand, putting in 50, a single to us is net 35 to 50 grand. Double would be 50 to 75. We've seen these real estate investors making 80, 100, 150. So for a long time, they made really good money. And now they're not hitting singles. They're striking out. They're losing 10, 20, 30 grand. But because I think a big thing is, because we're dealing with so many professionals and they have that dry powder, they take the loss and they live to fight another day. Now, we're going to see losses. We're not naive to that. We have not yet in Ontario, but we're prepared for it. We've underwritten it. We've forecasted it in our model. We've given that disclosure to our auditors, to our shareholders, we reserve for that. We're in the business of risk, and if we don't have the odd issue, then we're probably not analyzing risk properly. So, in general, what we're seeing is there's definitely borrowers that are not going to be as successful as they hoped. They're going to lose money, but in most instances, we're seeing them be ready to participate in the next deal. Some of our more sophisticated borrowers are already actively getting into the next deal. They're buying really well. At some point, the market will clearly have bottomed in Ontario, and there's still a lot of demand. Like, what a really remarkable thing for us being from Alberta and looking at what's happening in Ontario is typically you see massive swings in inventory, right? Like right now, there's not many markets where inventory is above 3.5 months. And in Alberta, like during the downturns, you see inventory creep up. Like markets in general, like Calgary's market was 7 months of inventory.
That's
you had
crazy.
neighborhoods, and this was for years. During like 2015, 16, 17, you had neighborhoods that had 9 months of inventory. You had also had neighborhoods with 3 months. So what that tells us and what we believe is that at some point it's going to bottom and start to move up. And that's going to be a really great opportunity for our flippers to get back in. But even now we're seeing people buy really sharp, execute quick, get to the market. So even if it drops, like if we're let's say it is another 15%, and hopefully that takes over a period of time. Let's say it takes 7 months to drop that extra 15. So on average, 2% a month. If you're getting back to market quickly, you're minimizing the risk of that market continuing to go down. And our best flippers are getting back to market really quick.
Mm-hmm. So are you seeing, so your flippers, they're staying in the game? No one's been like crippled?
They're staying in the game. Transactions have essentially halved for us in Ontario from where they were in let's call it December, January, February. Mm-hmm. And we are getting new, what's great is during this time, we're focusing on educating, focusing on systems, focusing on finding the next group of professionals that we can support. So we have, even our volume flippers are doing a lot less volume, but mm-hmm. that's okay because we're bringing in new investors, new flippers.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Now tell us of the Alberta story. Alberta's got the short end of the stick forever.
Alberta, yeah, we've had the short, since we had essentially what happened was we had a big run up, financial crisis happened. We had a big run down through, call it 2010. We had a nice run up through 2014. Energy prices tanked in 14. We had a really crappy market from 14 to half of 20. And then we had a piece of the COVID boom. But if you look at prices from 2007 to today, in most instances, it's like a lot has happened in between 7 and today, but we're like 2, 3, 4% ahead. So like there hasn't been appreciation. And in turn, there's really great affordability. You can move to Calgary, Alberta, and you can buy a single family house, a really nice single family house. Let's call it a 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot bungalow for under $600K. You can drive to your downtown office in less than 25 minutes. You can drive to Canmore, Alberta, the mountains, in an hour. The airport in half an hour. And there is a lot of opportunity. Our employers are hiring. We need people. We need young, educated people. So even as an employer operating, being Calvert as an employer, when we go out to the market to find our people, we're hearing more and more from people in Vancouver, people in Southern Ontario, where they're saying, one of our dreams is to own real estate, and we don't see us to own our own real estate, to own our own home, and we don't see that happening for a long time in where we're living. So it's making sense for them to come and realize that dream in this market. So we're seeing really good economic activity. We're seeing low unemployment. We're seeing very affordable housing and cost of living. And in turn, we're seeing big floods of migration that we've never seen, both interprovincial, so people moving in from other provinces, and international.
Mhm.
And in all likelihood, that's not going to slow down for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think I read an article. I think Q2 this year, Ontario lost about 20. Ontario alone lost 20,000 people to Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's probably your biggest cohort for interprovincial
No,
migration.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
totally.
lot of people.
It's a lot of people, especially for, in Alberta, we're, I think, still under 5 million in total population. Like we're not even, GTA.
No, we're not even GTA for the whole province.
So to have 20,000 Ontarians move is a big mover of the dial, and a lot of them are moving here to start their lives or to better their lives. Which by the way, I'm from Ontario originally. I grew up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and moved here after university. And I now consider myself a Calgarian. I've been here since 2007, and it's a real point of pride that we're having people move here and that we have an exciting economy and an exciting place to live.
Mhm, mhm. Where are people moving to? Which centers are gaining the most?
Calgary and Edmonton,
Yeah.
um, Calgary and Edmonton, and you know what? It's interesting. For a long time, you had a real problem with downtown condo supply in both of those markets.
Mhm.
They just overbuilt, and because of that, condos are extremely affordable. So we're having these young people come and they want to be downtown, they want to be in the scene, and they can buy a really nice, like, 1,000 square foot condo right by the Saddle Dome, right by downtown, 350 under 400. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
sh- can you build it at that price?
Good question. I don't know if you can
I don't
now,
know if
but
you
there are,
can.
like, a lot of these were built during the last boom. So they were,
Right, right, right.
they started their groundwork in, let's call it 2010, 11, 12. And then a lot of them had to convert to rentals. A lot of them, they just shelved them. Like there was a big supply issue for a long time and just drove those prices down. So um, I don't know what the cost per square foot is these days on them, but finally we're eating through the inventory and we're starting to see the potential for some new residential developments downtown.
Fantastic. Oh yeah,
So
because my social media is flooded with Toronto brokers promoting Calgary condos.
yeah, yeah, which is
I should
always
probably check the
scary.
prices on that.
It's all like, as we all know, real estate is so localized, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
always worrisome when you have the out of town expert promoting something that is so,
Oh, you're gonna anger so
you
many
need to
people.
be there. You need to feel it and see it and know your neighborhoods. And we haven't had speculation in Alberta, and that's another reason why prices are so affordable. So it's a bit scary to hear that story of
Oh, you don't see it? Oh yeah, they don't target you, right? So they target me.
yeah, yeah. Although I'm sure their borrowers, their clients will start calling us, right, and say, hey, I'm going to buy this on spec, and we don't work with speculators, so
Right, right,
it's
right.
an easy
Well,
no.
yeah, I'm guessing you don't work with new pre-construction buyers.
No, although I shouldn't say that, because what we will do is the day they're like, when you're ready to buy, right? Like, so we land on market value. So a lot of what we did in Ontario is, hey, I'm gonna buy this and I'm gonna immediately sell it. And the bank doesn't want that business from me. Yet I bought it at, I'm gonna use easy numbers. I bought it at 500. Today it's worth 650. We're going to lend them the purchase price. Like we'll
Mhm.
lend them with literally nothing down, and then they just sell it and make their money. So that we will do, but
Mm.
the value has to be fully realized. We won't give them a commitment today, or so if they do get lucky enough, or even a lot of people, like, if I were, I'm just putting myself in their shoes. My wife and I were buying a house that we anticipated to live in, and it went up $250,000 in a year. We probably wouldn't end up living in it. We'd probably take the money and deploy it through investment. So
Mhm.
we get why people do it, and we'll support that when the
Mhm.
real value is there and our risk is protected.
All right, so you're almost like a bridge. You're almost providing bridge financing as well here.
it's Erwin, our goal is to provide short-term mortgage solutions. So
Right.
it just so happens that the bulk of those short-term mortgage solutions are to real estate investors. But when we can bridge deals, like literally, we've lent our money out for 2 days. We've lent it out for 2 weeks, and we just price it so that we make sure it's profitable for us and priced good enough where it makes sense for the borrower to use our money. But if we can bridge deals, we're all over it. And again, because we move so quick, a lot of times what happens is they think the bank's going to participate in the bridge. 11th hour, the bank says no. Broker or borrower can come to us and get a commitment same day, and we can lend it out tomorrow.
Right.
So
Right.
we built a business to support those opportunities.
Right. I think just while we're, let me just interrupt you. Where can people get more information on Calvert? Because that's actually I've for the first time I actually started hearing that where people couldn't get their bridge loans. So where
Yeah.
can people find out more about Calvert?
So Google is always easy. Just Google Calvert Home Mortgage, and then we have a really great website. So you can visit our website, chmic.ca. Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation that's the abbreviation for it. .ca. The majority, all the information you'll find on there is directed to our borrowers. We don't do any mass advertising. We have nothing on our website for our shareholders. It's a pretty exclusive list and invite for that. But yeah, Google Calvert Home Mortgage or chmic.ca. Everything on there is geared towards educating borrowers and brokers on what type of lending we do and how we can support them. We have a really great Instagram, Calvert Home Mortgage. Again, it's all about education. We got great case studies. We'll roll out the clips that you and I work on, so we make sure our audience is getting some benefit from the work we've done here today. All of my underwriters and myself are available by email. It's just it's jesse@chmic.ca. So yeah, Insta. We have a YouTube channel. We haven't built it out as much as we should. We do have Facebook as well, so you'll be able to get a hold of us by any of those means.
Right. I'm guessing email's better than a Facebook message.
Email's great. Phone is great too. Phone is great. We pride ourselves on you will never not get a human during work hours. So we have great receptionists who will always answer the phone and know where to direct your call. And then we have a team, if you're looking to borrow money from us, a team of underwriters led by Sherwin, Garrett, and Rob, who have a lot of support. And somebody's always there to take your call, to work through the details, to work through the opportunity and to move the ball forward in real time. So phoning us is great too.
Jesse, you guys fill a gap. So for anyone who's new, no one fills this gap as far as I know. There's lots of the private lending market is generally extremely fragmented.
Yep.
Right? It's all small operators. You guys are way bigger than almost everybody in this space.
Yeah,
you're not bigger than a Bay Street Bank, obviously.
No, but for the short term residential, we're the biggest for sure. There are competitors to us that focus on more the longer term stuff, like basically they're an alt B lender, and there's a lot of good a lot of good alternative lenders and mix for that type of product. But for the short term, we want to be the best in class, and for really supporting real estate investors, we want to be the gold standard. We want to continue to build resources, tools, platforms for them, for their success. And what we talked about earlier is we know that the market for that is huge. The need for this type of investing activity is huge. They're benefiting themselves financially. They're benefiting the Canadian housing market, and we just want to continue to grow and scale this thing in support of others.
So Jesse, you said you're here to solve problems.
You bet.
I keep hearing. Thankfully, I haven't experienced it myself. I've had some challenges with B lenders. Just all these last minute requests. Literally, one B lender called me the day of closing and said, "Do you know you have knob and tube wiring in your house?" Like, yes, that's why I provided you the contractor quote to remediate it within the next 30 days. Like, Okay,
Yep.
just wanted to make sure you knew. But like before that, no one ever followed these things up, right? Like lenders were easy, but now I'm even hearing that certain B lenders aren't even closing on time, or
Hmm.
not, or just pulling on at the 11th hour, right? Does Calvert is Calvert kind of like a plan B then in this case? Because typical B lends I see are usually 1 year. That's not something
Right.
you guys play in, or
We should be if you're flipping a house, Erwin,
yeah, yeah,
we should be the plan A.
right.
And we want to make ourselves the plan A. In some instances, yes, B lender, you may be able to save some money on the financing, but in terms of that effortless experience, they don't know your business.
Right.
And in most instances, when you're really fully transparent with them, they don't want your business. So
Good
with
point.
us is we want it, we crave it, we understand it. We may not be we're never going to be the pricing that a B lender, that a home trust,
Uh-huh.
that an equitable bank offer,
Oh,
but
but you might not get it.
you might, how much stress is it if a deal falls through because of your financing on the 11th hour? So yes, will we be your plan B? For sure.
Right, right.
But our goal is when we get to deal with you on the plan B, that
Mhm.
we become your plan A,
Right, right, right.
right?
No,
Like
that's a really good
you'll get,
point.
yeah.
Because it's Calvert. Yeah, I didn't know about Calvert back then. Because when the property I was talking about, I bought in like 2019, right?
Mhm.
And my intention was to renovate it and then get a new mortgage. So there wasn't
Right.
really. I didn't need 12 months. I needed
No.
maximum 6 months.
And even if you need 12 months, or when we extend our 6 month term at no
All
cost
right.
to you. Like
Yeah.
as long as you're paying your bills and making progress on the project,
Yeah.
we'll extend it as long as you need. We're
Right.
not
Right.
going to put you in a position where we're jeopardizing you or the project as long as you're
Hmm.
performing.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, for certain, like a lot of our best clients, we've been that plan B, but we
Hmm.
show them how much we understand their business, how effortless, how when we say it's a commitment, it's a commitment.
Hmm.
Instructions are with the lawyer. We have best in class lawyers who understand your needs.
Hmm.
We reduce costs through that. We don't need appraisals. So have you ever gotten an after repaired value from an appraiser? How hard was that process? They're not educated on giving after repaired values, where we're literally, our appraisers, our in-house valuators are doing 40 to 60 after repaired value appraisals a week.
That's a lot.
Like we know the market, we know what the value add looks like, and a lot of times we're going to act as partners with you in a sense that we'll challenge you on your assumptions and hopefully make each other better, and
Yeah.
ask you if you're missing something, and kind of be that second or third set of eyes for you.
Right. Like telling me why do I need a 12 month finance when I don't need it?
Yeah, or,
I
or
think I had to
Erwin,
put up 35% too.
you got this 12 months, you're 35%. If you need to exit early, like when you improve if you're borrowing it and you want to exit early, there's a prepayment penalty. Why not just like, we'll literally make it an apples to apples approach and say, here's why we think you should deal with us. So
Right. It
we
was actually
we,
a
we
student
just
rental. I needed an earlier exit.
perfect.
Anyone who does student rentals knows exactly what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to explain it.
Yes, yes.
If you don't, I'm not incriminating myself. No, I'm kidding. uh, so, where's your forecast? What's your crystal ball telling you? Is the real estate market falling apart? Are you guys going to lose all your money? You have to tell your investors that it's all gone?
Crystal ball is telling us that that's definitely not the case. It's telling us that um, we need to continue to stick to our business practices, which is lending to the best borrowers on the best properties in quality markets. In terms of the real estate market as a whole, uh, Ontario is very different than Alberta. We feel much more strongly that Alberta will hold value through this inflationary period. Um, Values are likely to continue to drop in Southern Ontario, throughout Ontario, just because the easiest way to look at it, Erwin, is look at the markets that went like that had massive increases during COVID.
Hmm.
Okay, a lot of those increases are going to come off because that was purely, or a lot of it was really inexpensive money. So yes, there should be some appreciation because we've had economic growth. We've had population growth, but look at the markets where you've seen. What we're doing is looking at the markets where we've seen the biggest increases, and we're saying let's estimate what should have been a 5% increase compounded, right? And the rest of it is kind of potentially at risk during that 2-year COVID period. So we just continue to remain diligent on our underwriting, continue to serve the right clients. We're steadfast on lending into Ontario, on the right projects in the right market. So that's what our crystal ball tells us. There's still money to be made, and when others are greedy, be fearful. When others are fearful, be greedy. Is where we see the best money. Is how we see the best money operating. And during this time of fear, there's going to be opportunities.
Yeah, and then I'll just add to that, the gentleman who's responsible for that quote, he has 25 billion in cash and 75 billion in treasuries.
Yep.
So that's 100 billion of cash and cash equivalents. What I find that often gets lost by like internet and social media on Warren Buffett, they always focus on what he's holding and how much of it, without including cash.
Right.
So 100 billion in cash would be his second largest position after Apple stock. Right? So that's what the smart money is doing.
Ready to deploy.
Ready for fear, right? Yeah. Versus a mistake I think a lot of people have made is they got greedy. They were buying when they should have, when everyone else was being greedy.
Yeah, and we're, in a lot of we're early days into this, right? Like it'll be really interesting how the developments that will occur in Ontario, because of the fact that essentially you haven't seen it in 20 years, and people are conditioned.
2008 was a blip.
Yeah, people are conditioned, and it was a blip. Like
it was a blip because we have no supply.
Yeah, so there's going to be opportunities, and it's early days. Like you mentioned about we're starting to see some judicial listings, we call them, so some foreclosure listings.
Judicial listings.
That's what we call them in Alberta. Power of sale. There's going to be opportunities for the people who have the dry powder, who have been diligent, who haven't been speculating, who haven't laid it all on the line. I'll always make sure you have capital and resources for the next good deal. So crystal ball is continue to do your homework, continue to understand what opportunities are, and look to take advantage of them as they come up.
And then what do you think about interest rates? Where do you think we top out at?
We follow it fairly closely, so
I'd imagine so.
It sounds like it sounds like through the next year, we're going to see around another 125 basis point increase. So we'll likely see half of that next week, on the 26th, 75 bips, and then maybe 25 in December, and then another 50 through next year. At some point, the way we get out of inflation is by causing a recession. Although our central bankers seem to think that they can wave a wand and get a soft landing. Although if they could do that, they should have waved the wand 2 years ago when inflation started to rear its head. And then so we're seeing quantitative tightening. Eventually, interest rates top out because we have economic issues, and we'll see some quantitative easing. But if you look back historically, rates we're at right now are nothing new. Rates we're at right now are still neutral, right? They're technically not even to the point where they are so restrictive that they should be pulling back the economy. We've just had a generation, myself included, that is just really used to relatively inexpensive debt and inexpensive mortgages. Yet that's not the way the economy typically runs in terms of historical.
No, it's definitely fascinating times. You see a couple governments have already gone back to quantitative easing. like England, right?
Yeah,
Like Turkey, like Turkey. I saw a headline today. They're starting to print more money now too. They didn't. They capitulated pretty quick.
yeah, yeah. So, but it does sound like our central bank is really serious about
Oh
inflation.
yeah,
Like it does. It absolutely harms a lot of people, and unfortunately, it harms the most vulnerable most. So, it's something that is ugly, but needs to get done.
oh absolutely. Otherwise, just think what our government salaries will be.
Yeah, good
Right,
point. Our
right,
government salaries, our house, our food, you know.
right.
Yeah,
Like yeah,
yeah,
they'll all ask for bigger raises, and then we'll all have to foot that bigger tax bill. That'll be bigger than inflation.
yeah. It's scary to think of what long term inflation and how things compound themselves could look like. So um, it's good to hear our central bankers are serious about it. Although it would have been nice again if they had a crystal ball. But it's remarkable how many people were worried about it 2 years ago, and they said, "Oh, it's transitory." Like you hope that we have the smartest people in the right positions, and they weren't willing to take action when they should have.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't like just 12 months ago, inflation was like 4.4%. So what happened to our 2% target?
Yeah, double what it should have been. Exactly,
Yeah, it was over
exactly.
double what it should have been. Nothing was done.
But Erwin, it was transitory. Don't worry about it. And here we are.
Yeah. So yeah. So Jesse, I'm really disappointed. We agree on way too much. I was hoping for some more discourse. But yeah, I'm not surprised Alberta would outperform at least in the short term. It's been depressed so long. Um, you know, it just make it's. I don't like saying it because of all the implications that goes with it. The analogy I use for Alberta, for example, is in the U.S. For example, we've seen the mass exodus from like California and New York to like Texas and Florida. I don't
Mhm.
want to call Alberta the Texas and Florida of Canada,
Thank you.
but in terms of affordability and less taxes, like it makes
Yep.
so much sense. So we'll see. I can't see why we wouldn't see more immigration and interprovincial migration to Alberta. People will naturally go to where it makes sense. But yeah, it's good to hear that you think that actually is Edmonton and Calgary pretty interchangeable for investment? Like say you're ignorant me in Oakville. I want to
Yep.
invest in Alberta. Where do I start?
Um, you start with so you start. I think you start with the two biggest populations, which are Edmonton and Calgary. In terms of a population base in the greater area, they're very similar, although they're different markets. Calgary is the second largest corporate headquarters to Toronto in Canada. So you have a lot of white collar work, a lot of highly educated professionals in finance, engineering, um, accounting, and the such, technology as well. Um, Edmonton, you have so the average earnings in Calgary are higher, and it's a lot more private businesses. Whereas in Edmonton, you have a lot of government jobs. Edmonton is the capital of our province, so a lot more public work is done there. Um, it's also a lot more of the oil and gas service companies are based out of there. So blue collar, where they're doing technical machine work, uh, building, fabrication, those type of opportunities. So it is quite different, and in turn, and then so you have a lot higher amount of higher end houses in and around Calgary than Edmonton. Although Edmonton has a lot of wealth, but it's not as white collar as you would see in Calgary.
Mhm.
So your prices typically are less, about 5% less than in Calgary in Edmonton. Um, you have much more stability in Edmonton because of that public sector where when there's big downturns in the economy, Calgary's affected a lot more than Edmonton is. So you see a lot more stability in Edmonton. So It depends on what you like. And you could, if you like stability, Edmonton is definitely the market for you. If you like more mid to lower end pricing, Edmonton's the market for you. Whereas Calgary, you'll see some higher end stuff and you'll see more fluctuations. So you have to be a lot more on the trends in order to make money and protect yourself in Edmonton or in Calgary than you do in Edmonton.
As an ignorant Ontarian, I think I'd rather live in Calgary. I'd rather invest in Edmonton.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have definitely Edmonton. The climate is cold. It's cold. It's 3 hours north. We have these in Calgary, these mountain effect weather patterns. So they're called Chinooks. So you'll see a day in January where it's minus 25. The next day can literally be plus 5 and sunny. Edmonton doesn't get that to the extent that we do. So the weather here is better. We're closer to the mountains. Edmonton, you're kind of up in the high prairies, and they have a beautiful river valley. It is a beautiful city. I don't want to disparage it by any means, but the weather doesn't compare to Calgary. That's for sure.
Jesse, apologies for jumping all over the place since I don't come prepared with questions.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm enjoying this a lot.
Since investors listen to this show, many are always interested in lending. Are you accepting funds to lend out?
Yeah, we do accept funds to lend out. So I'll kind of start from the configuration of our fund. We have.
I'm sure people have questions like, where does money come from?
Yeah, which I'm happy to answer and happy to explore. So our money is so I mentioned the book size right now is 330 million. Of it, we have 130 million dollars from a syndication of major banks in Canada. So they've given us a line of credit in which we borrow from them at an average of, let's call it prime plus 0.5%. And we love that partnership because it gives us a really long-term secure source of capital at very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive rate. But we're a fund. We're a mortgage investment corporation. So we have shareholders. And our shareholders are high net worth individuals, family offices, and investment fund managers who give us the other $200 million. Our goal is to provide the best possible risk-adjusted return to them. Over our history of 40 years, average return has been 13%. Last 10 years is how I like to look, or better yet, last 13, because then that includes the financial crisis. So our goal, one of our main tenets is to protect capital first.
Right.
So while we can make more money,
you guys have experience going through like Alberta's downturns because of the oil markets.
Yeah, we went through multiple big downturns.
Right.
So if you look at the last 13 years, which includes the financial crisis where our returns were brought down, but we did protect our capital. We're at right around 10%. Last year we returned to our shareholders 12. And anyhow, that money comes from high net worth individuals. The minimum standard to accept capital for us because of how we're regulated. We're regulated.
And you are regulated, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just some fly by night business.
No. And because of, again, like the banks, there's a lot of rigor around that. There's a lot of reporting. In order for us to secure that line of credit, took us a lot of work, a lot of time building relationships, and we report to them basically our whole portfolio. They look at our underwriting and our risk. So as a shareholder, me and my wife put the bulk of we put all of our RSPs and TFSAs and let that compound into the fund. I love the fact that the banks are putting us through that rigor, not only for the fact that we can leverage it and provide a really good return to us, but it's a lot of rigor. We also have an independent board of directors. The only non-independent is our founder, Everett Keller. He's our chairman. So I'm all over the place now because going back to your first question is, do we accept capital? Yes. We accept it from higher net worth individuals because of how we're regulated. So
is accredited enough or beyond that?
Yeah.
Accredited.
So you have to have a minimum net worth of $1 million net financial or earn $200,000. ideally, we want to grow our investing base with investors who are sophisticated and who see the value in what we're doing and want to participate long term. So we want to continue to work with individuals and families that want to deploy larger sums of capital with us. We plan, by the way, to grow our fund from 330 to $1 billion in the next 5 years, and to do that, we're going to need about $300 million of new money. So we're always out there introducing and socializing our investment with the more sophisticated, the better. So the more we're dealing with the investment fund managers and the big family offices that have good counsel, that's who we want. Now, that doesn't. I don't want to have your listeners think that being a millionaire isn't enough to invest with us, because we will entertain that. But we're looking for strategic shareholders that we can grow this with.
Is there a minimum that someone has to be willing to invest?
No minimum. We might say no to some people based off of, again, just philosophical differences or long term. But for instance, we work with some of our smaller investors. We work with a lot of great lawyers, right? And they get to see kind of under the hood on who we are, how we operate, what our processes are, and they'll ask us, "Hey, Calvert, tell me about you as an investment product," and we'll let them know, and they'll say, "Yeah, I'd love to put in $80,000 of TFSA." We'll gladly accept that. We treat that as a compliment. Same as realtors, same as mortgage brokers. Like, those would be our smaller investors. But when our industry partners are coming to us we treat that as a huge compliment, and we will go the extra step to accommodate them, provided they're accredited. But we're definitely not a general public type investment product, and nor should we be. Some of the risks in investing with us are definitely the lack of liquidity. We only provide redemptions once a year. We are a private placement, so we're not publicly traded. We don't have that. We don't go through that rigor. We do have audited financial statements, but so the general public shouldn't be investing in us. But for those who are accredited and see value in us, we want those phone calls. We invite those phone calls.
I think from my experience, I've seen so many investments go sideways. So I'm like scared of anything that's not regulated.
Yeah.
Are you guys regulated under OSC or Canada?
Yeah.
Or
so the Canadian Securities Administrators are the ones who provide the broad umbrella of regulation, and we're considered an exempt market product. We're also an investment fund manager. We're licensed as an investment fund manager and a portfolio manager. So we have various regulations under that. And then for every province in which we invite capital from, and right now those provinces are British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, we have to report to those provincial regulators. So if I were to accept Erwin's RSP money, we'd have to file a report. We'd have to make sure that we'd have to file a report saying, here's the trade, OSC, here's Erwin. We'd have all your documentation, your client, all that, and be responsible for ensuring that we're meeting their guidelines. And we take all regulation very seriously. We see
you
a
have
real
no choice but to.
Well, that's not true. Like the ones that blow up, usually they're not taking it serious. Usually they don't understand why it's important to raise money from people who should be participating in investments like this, not mom and pop type investors.
Proper offering memorandums, transparency, proper disclosures. Those are important things.
Those are critical things. Yes. So yeah.
Yes, they're saying that now, but man, there are so many large fund syndicated mortgages on developments that were not, right? They tried to regulate them. They thought they could be regulated as mortgages. But that
and what's scary is that still exists in a sense in Ontario. Like in Alberta, the Alberta Securities Commission came in 2010 and said any trading in mortgages outside of Erwin lending his own money is regulated. So a syndicated mortgage has been a a regulated activity since 2010, whereas in Ontario, it's not yet. And you still see mortgage brokers putting together essentially fairly complex financial instruments that carry a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And you have mom and pa putting $25,000 into a second mortgage at 80+%. That's something that I worry about as the market turns. And I think we're going to hear some horror stories, and hopefully it catches the eyes of the regulator, and we put some more robust regulation around that activity.
Yeah, I posted something about that just this week about but those syndicated mortgages and large development funds sure look a lot like investments. They don't look like mortgages to me.
They are absolutely investments and need to be treated as such.
Yeah, and then hence regulated under a securities commission.
Yeah,
which you are.
Yeah,
because
so
too many people took on too much risk. Again, my criteria now is it has to be regulated.
Yeah, that's a good start. That's a good start.
Which is funny because, like, we're friends with lots of entrepreneurs, and we do not like regulation, but I've seen way too many people lose their shirts in non-regulated investments.
Yeah, like regulation to a certain component, right? For investments, there needs to be some guidelines and rigor around that, so regulation is important to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Too much is going to thwart economic activity.
Yeah.
Too little is going to create risk.
Mm-hmm. And it's reasonable for you in your experience, the level of regulation, because you have to report to a national body and each provincial body.
Yeah, it is very reasonable. One thing that gets me a bit is we look at concentration risk. So we don't want to see any of our shareholders having more than 10% of their financial assets with us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough telling an individual who has $4 million net financial assets that, hey, going to 500,000 with us is not wise, and here's why. So, to an extent, so that's kind of the biggest pushback I get is that we have really, or even let's say you have a young, super smart budding lawyer who's making 250 grand, but only has making 250 today and likely is going to far outstrip that in the future, who only has 100. To say that he shouldn't be able to invest what he or she sees is so yes, there's always going to be areas where we're like, is this this is prohibiting economic activity, but for the whole, we don't see much issue. It's not a huge burden. It is somewhat costly, like it creates a barrier to entry for new market participants. So in order to be properly regulated from the real estate board side of things, from the security side of things, from audit side of things, it's tough to operate a mortgage investment corporation that doesn't have more than $20 million of assets under management. So, I don't like that because it's impacting new talent and new strategies to our market. It's kind of favoring the incumbents and favoring more and more amalgamation, but the smart people know how to get into the market, so they'll figure it out.
Hopefully, because the world needs more smart people.
Exactly.
Amazing. Jesse, anything I haven't asked? I've asked a lot.
No, you have asked a lot, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. No, it's been great. We talked about how we lend. We talked about who we lend to. We talked about how we operate. I really enjoyed our discussion on the market. We're good.
I appreciate how you shared that you do your diligence on the borrower, because I think there's a lot of borrowers out there that wish they had had to jump through more hoops before they got their money.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is that borrower interview, and really, if we don't see them being successful, we're out. But we know for a fact that when we were doing even now, like you see somebody that watches too much HGTV, they have capital, they have a loose plan, but the plan is not tight. Property's not tight. They're going to lose money. We say no. They find the lowest common denominator and they lose each other's money.
Oh no.
Which sucks. But the invisible hand of the market will deal with that. Like we talked about, what's happening in Ontario right now hasn't happened in 20 years. And some people will learn some lessons. Unfortunately, some of them will be expensive.
Yeah, it's really sad, but it's the market. It's going to shake out the weaker hands. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, thanks so much for this. And then one last time, I'll have everything in the show notes in terms of your contact information, your email, your cell phone number, your SIN number, your home address, website.
NOA.
One last time, the website?
chmic.ca.
Fantastic. And you guys are Canadian?
We are Canadian. We're
it's
based
Canadian
out of Alberta.
Money. Is that like Saudi money or something?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. How we raise money, it's all Canadian. We have some Canadians who are now Bahamians that invest. We have some Canadians that are now Costa Ricans that invest, but it's Canadian capital.
I want to meet these people. I want to be their friends.
They're really cool people. That's something I love about my job, is that I get to meet so many cool people. I get to hang out with guys like yourself. I get to meet entrepreneurs who have built some really spectacular companies and in turn wealth. I get to bounce ideas and hear from them. I get to work with entrepreneurs who are just starting to build their wealth in the form of flippers. So it's a fun business that I really enjoy participating in.
And you're going to meet a lot more of them November 12th at the Wealth Hacker Conference in Toronto, which you'll be at.
Yeah, can't wait. We're really excited. We haven't, because of, we entered Ontario during COVID, basically. And we haven't been there as much as we should. And we have a lot of great fans and great partners that we really look forward to meeting everybody, shaking hands, and getting to learn more about each other and how we can work together. So.
Yeah, because it sounds like I think the best, like these next 18 months, 2 years will probably be the best opportunity for our generation.
Yep.
So folks need to be educated on best practices and, be ready for this.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Jesse.
Thank you, Erwin.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. The link's also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.